Hi, Dr. Seffrin. This is my presentation on Mindhunter and Zodiac. One is obviously an episode that you had us watch, and then the second is a movie that I chose. One of my favorite movies, actually. And I did put like another title in there, the Prideful, because both of them do seem very prideful with their work. In this first slide, I decided to include the definition of pride just right off the bat. I highlighted the verb one in particular, be especially proud of a particular quality or skill, is because of how they would kind of brag. The both of them would brag about their killings and their victims. Again, in Zodiac, it's very much more prevalent in his letters that he would write to the police. And it was less prevalent in actual documented cases with Kemper, to my knowledge at least. But going based off of the episodes that you had me watch, he was kind of proud. He was proud in the knowledge that he had, especially when in episode 2, when he was showing Holden what part of the neck would be the best for going at it, basically. And this is slide 3. I wanted to include the Zodiac first because I am most knowledgeable about the Zodiac. I have the book, it's called Zodiac by Robert Graysmith, and Zodiac, the movie, Jake Gyllenhaal plays Robert Graysmith. Robert Graysmith was a cartoonist at the Chronicle, the San Francisco Chronicle, and he is a very knowledgeable man about this case. He was very, very interested. And in the book, I'm just going to reference the book for a second. In the book, it goes day by day and detail by detail from police reports that Graysmith had acquired throughout, from the actual Chronicle to other police reports that he would get from actual policemen. And I found that very, very interesting. And I forgot to mention this in my last slide, but I do have links to everything, all of the sources in the slides, unless I say otherwise. And all of my sources are from Google Images for pictures. Specifically in the slide, I have his wanted poster with 2 different character artist sketches. And I also have, in the corner on the manila envelope, I have his symbol, because I thought that would be nice to include. On slide number 4, I put down the 2 suspects. Obviously, I pictured how they were portrayed in the movie. I do also realize that I did warp Lee's picture. It was just to match the size of David Toshi's picture. But the 2 suspects were Arthur Lee Allen, which throughout the movie you can just see how much they're basically pressing him on his ability. I believe it was because of his ambidextry, if I remember correctly. I watched the movie last week when I got this assigned, so I don't particularly remember the details in exact order, and I'm just going based off my thoughts as if this was right in front and I had no notes. But Arthur Lee Allen was a prime suspect. The Bay Area refused to believe after DNA tested, and had also been proven multiple different times wrong, specifically when David Toshi, I believe it was the ambidextry. I believe Lee claimed that he was left-handed, and Toshi decided that he is actually ambidextrous, and they compared the handwritings. Both handwritings, left and right, proved wrong. that it was not Lee's handwriting. Again, that can also be just thrown out the window, as Lee could have tried to purposely write his handwriting a certain way instead of the actual Zodiac's, but that's just speculation on my end. And again, DNA tested that it is wrong, and the Bay Area still refuses to this day that it is wrong. And one thing that I wanted to note was David Toshi. And I have a star next to him, and it was only because he was suspected, because he did send in fake letters of praise. I cannot remember off the top of my head if it was from exactly from when the murders were happening, before or after. But he did, in the end credits, it did say that he did do that. And I believe that's one of the reasons why he was kicked off the force, if I remember correctly. I know I'm saying a lot of if I remember correctly, but my memory's a little hazy. It's okay. We're all human. And again, sent fake letters of praise to a few other news outlets that he did, in fact, those news outlets, he used fake names, fake aliases to get his point across. On my fifth slide, I decided to put down some of the ciphers and the letters, because, again, it's also very interesting just to see the ciphers laid out right in front of you. So my first letter is July 31st, 1969, and it was basically him saying that the kill and the thrill of the kill is better than getting your rocks off with a girl, end quote. And the little subtext underneath, one of the first ciphered letters explaining his thrill for it. The next letter, dated April 20th, 1970, I want to say 34 years before I was born, to the day. This letter is a prime example of his cockiness. He said that he listed his name in ciphers. We're not exactly sure if that is his name, but it's also just really well to note that if it were his real name and we just haven't deciphered it, it's really cool to say, hey, this is actually his name. Whatever, I'm gonna stop rambling. The third letter is June 26th, 1970, and this is him basically explaining that he didn't see people wearing Zodiac buttons that he requested in an earlier letter. I did not provide the earlier letter, but I do have the link for the Zodiac website, or the Zodiac Letters website, right above the whole entire slide. Sorry for the brain fart. But he was basically saying, oh, they're not wearing the Zodiac buttons, I'm going to punish them. Which he did say he was going to punish them in the first letter for this. So, he was going to plan to shoot up a school bus, and if you remember, in the movie, he basically calls them little kiddos, and he's going to shoot them one by one, bouncing off the bus. And then later in the movie, they somehow translate it to little darlings when David Toshi takes over the murder case, which, again, not exact wording, so there might have been mistranslation. I believe I mentioned that in my paper as well. But the letter where he wanted to punish the public because they didn't wear Zodiac buttons. Obviously, he couldn't do the school shooting or the school bus shooting. So, he ended up saying, oh, I have a bomb at this location, and he also provided a map, which I did not provide. Again, that could be found on the Zodiac Letters website, or a quick Google search, whatever you prefer. And he said, I'm going to bomb this place, you guys have until the fall. To my knowledge, that was false, like, that didn't happen, like the bomb. Then again, I haven't kept up that much on the case. It's been a while since I've been thinking about it. Alright, to our sixth slide. I do provide, or I did provide the link for BetterHelp's source definition of narcissistic personality disorder. We're going on to the biological and psychological issues that Zodiac poses. As you go into the other portion for Ed Kemper, I'm so sorry for my phone going off. If you go into the other side for Ed Kemper, you can see that I didn't put it as detailed because they're pretty much very similar with the ways that they portrayed the same disorders. That's a later problem. But for now, I did put in this first slide narcissistic personality disorder. And I also have multiple different cases or instances that he pretty much showed all of this business. That was probably not the word to use. But it could have been caused in childhood, but we don't know because guess what? We don't know him. We don't know him. Sought out attention, obviously, with sending ciphers, sending out his name, saying he's going to bomb and kill and all this stuff, and knows the exact details about his murders, and sending it to the news outlets and saying, hey, publish this or I'm going to be mad, or punish this or I'm going to punish you. Whatever. Expected to be treated higher even though he wasn't. Again, that goes back to like the Button case in the movie Zodiac. Robert Downey Jr. and Jake Gyllenhaal. Side note, I hate Jake Gyllenhaal. I'm just gonna say that again because I know I said in my paper, absolutely hate the guy. And that's another story for another time. Both of them were at the gun range. Robert Downey Jr.'s character, Paul Avery, was shooting because he needed to vent. And Jake Gyllenhaal's sitting there and they're talking about the case. And Jake Gyllenhaal and Robert Downey Jr. have buttons on and it says, I hate Paul Avery. I believe it says, I hate Paul Avery. That's probably awful to just say, like, I forget things, but hey, again, I'm gonna say, I'm human. I like to talk. He loves to feel power. Again, going back to him being in charge, calling the shots in his ciphers and letters. And he set very high expectations for people, again, following back to the freaking bombing. And then I put ETC because there's way more than I want to explain. Now we're on slide 7. And if you want the definitions, the Mayo Clinic should be for antisocial personality disorder. So sorry for that. And dissociative identity disorder, the quote origin is, I believe the website is called Bibli. It's something, I think it's Biblio. I could be very wrong, but I wanted to put it as quote origin instead of whatever it was because you'd probably be like, what the hell? Where's this from? And then I also included a picture of Zodiac portrayed in the movie because obviously. He lacks antisocial personality disorder. He lacks empathy when killing. That can be told by the second murder scene that we watch. He does say, like, oh, I'll tie you up, or you tie this guy up, and then he's like, I'm gonna rob you, I'm taking your money, and I'm taking your keys. And the guy offers all of that. And then all of a sudden, he just has a change of heart. And he goes up to the guy, kills him. Then he goes up to the girl. Or no, he goes up to the girl first, stabs her repeatedly, goes up to the guy, murders him. Okay, that might have been switched around. Sorry. I had a lot of coffee. That also did not help. Kills people on a whim. Again, I probably just said that. Kills people on a whim. We're just gonna use that scene as an example. Also, just realized the picture is from that scene. exhibiting impulse, makes people angry because, again, lacking empathy for others. That's pretty self-explanatory. Now we're going to go to the possible dissociative identity disorder. And the quote that I used was, a psychology professor who wrote a book about Zodiac has posed, that the murderer may have recovered from dissociative identity disorder, otherwise known as multiple personalities. With no recovery came to end of his desire to kill. In the movie Zodiac, there's a point in time that there's an attorney on, I believe it's TV. I can't remember the attorney's name off the top of my head. But the attorney was talking to Zodiac. They had like a specific time frame set up for each other, and Zodiac was on the phone, and you could have either heard someone he was torturing in the background that screamed, or it could have been him. And I'm posing this as the dissociative identity disorder because he talks, then he just starts screaming, or the victim might have been screaming, or his other personality decided to scream in a high-pitched voice. He may have an alter that is a woman. I don't know the exacts of dissociative identity disorder. I do know of a person that does have it, but I'm not very knowledgeable on that, so I can't further explain the exact details of it. But basically, I want to also back this up and support what this guy had said about the dissociative identity disorder, and I think that was really, really intriguing to learn about while I was doing further research besides for just watching the movie, because I need to do further research besides for movies. Okay, for slide number 8, I just wanted to give my personal feedback, and I decided to include the movie poster because why not? It has, I think his name is Mark Rubio. That's not his name, but we're gonna roll with it. Mark, Robert Downey Jr., and Jake Gyllenhaal. And then in the front is David Fincher? Something like that. And from the perspective mostly of someone who was actually there, Robert Graysmith, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, I believe that this movie stayed true to its roots, meanwhile providing entertainment for someone who doesn't know or care about these murders. And I believe it was very, very good to include somebody that was there. You could have seen, like, behind the scenes, like, when he was alone and single and he was obsessing over it, and then his wife found out that he kept obsessing over it, and the kids started obsessing over it once they got a little bit older. And I found that very, very fascinating because, again, the obsession. You'll see later in the PowerPoint that I don't like it for when Ed Kemper comes around. But for now, I do enjoy it, and I loved how, besides for David directing it, Robert Graysmith was also directing it, which I found very, very interesting. I really enjoyed how the two, one entertainment guy and one guy that was actually there it's based off of, it was really, really interesting to see how the both of those can provide like a balance of entertainment, meanwhile providing actual accounts from an actual person that was there. But let's move on to Ed Kemper. Now, I'm just going to say right here, right now, Ed Kemper, I wasn't as fascinated as I was, because, I don't know, it just didn't really catch my eye, so I might have a biased opinion on it. So I do apologize if I seem overly critical of what I'm about to say, regarding the Mindhunter. I also don't really like Mindhunter. Fun fact, I also found out that David, the guy who directed, along with Robert Graysmith, also directed Mindhunter, specifically on these 2 episodes. So I was a little bit disappointed how everything turned out, which was really amazing and intriguing given that I really enjoyed Zodiac. Okay, now we move on to Ed Kemper. So, again, I did further research because I felt like Mindhunter didn't do that good of a job explaining everything, and I hated how the order was because he revealed his early childhood life like more towards the end of the episode than in the beginning. And I like things in chronological order usually, so that was also just like a doc or a deduction in my scoring for it. I didn't score this, but in my head, I'm scoring it. Okay, so Ed Kemper, in parentheses, real. From a young age, he exhibited his behaviors in a very self-critical. Oh my gosh. Because of his very critical alcoholic of a mother. One thing he would be seen later is cutting the head off his sister's dolls, obviously portrayed by him cutting women's heads off and, going at it. His first victims were cats, and then in the episode it actually said cats and dogs. But from my research furthering it, it was just cats. First burying one alive and then stabbing the other to death. Which I didn't find anywhere that it said cats and dogs. I only found cats. So I'm just going to roll with it and say cats. All right. And then slide 12, his first victims were his grandparents. After his grandparents' murder, he then went on to kill 6 women, not including his mother. I don't know why I said including. It would technically be 7 at that point. He would kill these women, cut off their heads, and perform sexual acts with their heads, including his own mother. I think verbatim what was said in the Netflix show, that she came home and complained that she didn't have any sort of connection to that very, very intimate level in, I want to say, 30, 40 years. I believe that's what it was said. And he did his thing, humiliated her, and then he said, well, you just did. So I found that a little bit unnerving, but we'll carry on. And I decided to just simplify these because the website that I use to get this template off of likes to be difficult and use really, really big fonts. And I felt like I needed to have really, really big fonts to get what I was getting across. So, narcissistic personality disorder. Kemper confessed to his murder after no one successfully chased after him. And in the episode of Mindhunter, he would low-key, it wasn't very, very, very prominent from what I remember, but he would be like very, very subtle, be like, yeah, I did that. Okay, I did that. Yeah, that was me. That is me. I am the co-ed killer. I did those things to those women. And then we move on to antisocial personality disorder, which he lacks empathy due to abuse he faced when he was younger, again, to his alcoholic mother. And then he fled to his dad's, and then his dad was like, no. So it was kind of like toss the hot potato until his grandmother got it. So poor her, or grandparents, sorry. And then STPD. If you click the Cleveland Clinic link that I have below it, it's schizotypal disorder, which, off the top of my head, I don't remember. I had to pull that up. It's a mental health condition marked by a consistent pattern of intense discomfort with relationships and social interactions, and they tend to have unusual thoughts, speech, behaviors, etc. And one quick Google search, if you say, oh, what was Ed Kemper's mental disorders? It's in order: narcissistic, antisocial, schizotypal. And my highlighting factor was he had a hard time building relationships or friendships due to trust issues from childhood abuse. Again, we're throwing it back to his mother. because his mother is the root of all evil, apparently. I'm not just denying that from him. That's just what I have gathered from Mindhunter. I almost said Criminal Minds. That's what I got from Mindhunter. It's just, my mom this. I understand that. However, he's making it his whole personality that his mom did this, which is technically not wrong and technically not false, but I didn't like how it was portrayed in Mindhunter. Okay, and for slide 13, this is my overall feedback. I did not enjoy this because of the focus mainly being on Holden's obsession with Kemper rather than Kemper's POV and what he was thinking. So here's where my contradiction comes in. I said in Zodiac, I loved how Robert Graysmith was, like, kind of the main character, besides for Zodiac, obviously, and David Toshi towards the end. The main reason why I hated it here, it's because, correct me if I'm wrong, Holden never did this interview with Kemper. And I could be totally wrong about this. I didn't research this, so I could be totally wrong. However, he was not intimate with the case. It's just kind of like, hey, I Googled this, like, in modern terms, or if it was in modern, hey, I Googled this, and I found this pretty intriguing, so I'm going to go ask him myself. That was my main critique. I didn't like how it seemed like he was just like, you know, I need to know X, Y, and Z, or this is going to help me and my own selfish desires. I just didn't like that in Holden's character. And Ed Kemper was really not the focus. It was the focus of his obsession, but it wasn't the focus of, like, the character himself being portrayed. I feel like it did a disservice to what Ed Kemper's story is, and it's just very, very odd how they had it set up. Which the guy, David, who directed both of these, I felt like, yeah, I can understand the differences. However, I just didn't like how it was portrayed, and it just kind of icked me. Okay, and for my final slide, my 14th slide, I put the similarities down because of everything. Just need to lay it out so we can kind of set it together. And this template, luckily, puts only 4. I could extend it to 8, but I don't think I can make it thorough enough, yet vague for a PowerPoint to make it 8. So number 1, I have lacking empathy. Duh. Obviously, because of the narcissistic personality disorder and whatever. The wording I used specifically, both killed people and basically, in quotes, teabagged their victims. I used a gaming term, which is really, really weird for me to do in a college class. But basically, teabagging, if you're not aware, is basically, let's say you're playing a video game, like you're playing Call of Duty, and you kill somebody that has been just bothering you the whole entire game. And you get that sweet, sweet victory on that person that one time. And generally people use the crouch button, which is usually C. They keep spamming that button to be like, haha, haha, I'm laughing at you, basically. It's a taunt, basically. And I used that specific wording because I couldn't find any other wording to better describe it. Bragging is number 2. And I put it in quotes because it's technically not them saying, like, oh yeah, I did it, so what? Even though that was Ed Kemper's case and Zodiac's case. Zodiac wrote a letter, wanted it published, so he got it published. Ed, oh my god, Ed just kind of talked about it. He talked about it in passing. He was like, okay, yeah, I did in fact kill them. So what? We're moving on. 3, secrecy. I don't know if I spelled that correct, so we're gonna hope for the best. They were gradually revealing things about themselves more as they went along. And Zodiac, that's very prominent. You can tell that he was very, very comfortable to the fact that he would reveal his own name. he is a killer on the loose, and he tried to say what his name was in a cipher, and if they broke it, boom, they had it. Secrecy in Kemper's case was specifically in the episode of Mindhunter. He slowly revealed about his issues at home. In the beginning of the episode, he said, "Oh yeah, I went to a nice school. My mother was loving. My sisters were nice." And then, as you further went along the episode, he said, "Oh yeah, my mother was actually not nice. She was an alcoholic and she abused me." And that's pretty much all I have for that. And the fourth one is kind of a reach, but I thought was interesting. Their first victims were couples. The grandparents were Ed Kemper's, and I can't remember off the top of my head. Again, this is the last time I'm saying it. Can't remember off the top of my head. The girl and the boy at Lover's Lane in Vallejo, where they got shot, and people thought it was fireworks because it was 4th of July weekend. It was just very, very odd how everything was set up. First victims were couples. Were they in loving places? Technically, yeah. Lover's Lane, obviously. And the grandparents were killed in their home that they've had for forever. And that is the best I can do to explain that case.